Good morning. Are we on? Good. Let me say that again. Good morning. How are y'all doing this morning? Well, good. Boy, it is great to be here. It is great to come out of what I hope was a fun-filled vacation time with family and friends and others where maybe you could recharge your batteries and get ready for what I think is going to be an amazing spring semester. So we're going to kick that off today. We're going to talk a little bit about what the fall looked like. We're going to revisit a number of things that we've talked about all semester in terms of the future of our institution, where we're headed, where we're going, where we've been, those sort of things. And so we're excited about that. I would like to say, first of all, thank you to all of our staff for taking some time out of your day today to be here and listen to us and muddle through some numbers and things that we're going to put on the screen. Thanks a lot to our faculty who are here and those who are watching. I am aware that you really don't finish your break until Monday, and you're taking time out of your personal time today to be with us. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. So we're going to go through a few things today. We're going to start off with Vice President Stumo, and he's going to talk about where we finished the fall in terms of enrollment, where we're headed in terms of this idea of us growing our institution over the next 5 years with $6 million in revenue that's going to be injected by 700 more students. A legislator this week, I was speaking at a legislative session, subcommittee hearing, and he branded that the 567 Pittsburgh State Plan. So we're going to go with that. I'm not going there, Carl. I'm not going there, Carl. You know, my father always told me, don't say something that you don't understand or can't explain. So we're going to leave it at that. And then Mark is going to talk about academics, and we're going to kind of refresh ourselves on that strategy for growth through academic programs and those that we've identified as potential programs that we could really grow and we could really focus on in terms of growth at our institution. And then Doug is going to talk about finances. He's going to give us a little overview of all the amazing facility projects that we've got going on and where they're at and how they're going and where they're coming in. And then I'm going to close it out by really formally launching probably what I've already launched because I can't tend to keep my mouth shut when I get excited about something. And so we're going to really drill into the kind of revised, tweaked, simplified strategic plan called Access Pitt State. And then we're going to finish it off. We're going to give you time to ask questions, launch rockets or grenades or softballs at me, whatever you feel appropriate. And then we'll go out there and we'll have an amazing spring semester here at Pittsburgh State. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carl Stumo, and he's going to talk about enrollment.
Just step back, make sure the clicker works. There we go. There we go. I think it's always important that we start with that grounding in our missional statement, making life better through education. Dr. Newsom talked about the fact that we will be revisiting and revising and really sharpening our strategic plan. At the same time, the mission doesn't change. Improving lives through education is really our foundational component. And that starts with individual stories of students who have finished their Pitt State education and then moved out into success. And I know Dr. Newsom is a big fan of telling these stories, so I think I'll let you keep that one going forward. But it's a great way to keep all of the student successes that we have in front of us to make sure that we remind ourselves every day the mission and the work of supporting our students when they succeed. A variety of incredible accomplishments throughout the fall. It was hard to be able to just make in a bulleted list of all of the accomplishments and new work that was accomplished throughout the fall, but you just get a real clear sense of, in a narrative outline here, of some of the incredible pieces of student success, faculty success, staff success that happened throughout the fall 2025 recap. So I'd like to, on behalf of the administration and the campus as a whole, congratulate each one of you who are a part of these examples of student success. So thanks for all of your hard work and all of your ways that you make life better for our students, both on campus and out in the world as they are making life better through education. All right, let me jump into enrollment, and our goal this morning is to be able to take a look at a little bit of a reprise of what we talked about last fall in terms of enrollment planning, and then dive into some of the accomplishments or our position both for spring 2026 and where we stand for fall 2026 as well. So Dr. Newsom just mentioned this plan or structure that we've really been leaning into. I like the 5-6-7 plan. I think that makes sense. We have the opportunity to remember over the next 5 years, our goal is to generate $6 million of additional net tuition revenue. So that 6 number is the $6 million of additional net tuition revenue. And we do that by identifying a total goal of 6,500 students at Pitt State, which would be a net addition of 700 students, right? So 5-6-7 is 5 years, $6 million, 700 students to land us at 6,500 students. And there are some assumptions that are built into that structure. The first assumption is that we keep the balance of undergraduate and graduate students. So undergraduates comprise 78% of our total enrollment at Pitt State right now, and 22% are graduate students of that overall enrollment. So assuming that balance stays the same, and a planned on, at least expected 2% annual tuition increase, that generates that $6 million of additional net tuition revenue that will then be invested into all of the priorities of our institution. So compensation and benefits, infrastructure, and student support services will be benefited by that additional $6 million. So after we have the plan, it's time to begin judging how well the work is happening. And I appreciate Abby put together a bit of a stop sign color structure where we can take a look at how well are some of these strategies being rolled out. So for the fall, we can look at the green buttons here where you can see total enrollment for last fall was up for the second year. 5,802 I think was our total number. Second year of growth overall. New first year students, or the freshmen, that was our 5th consecutive year of new student growth. New transfers, they were up, not quite as much as the freshmen, but new transfers were up. Graduate students were just a handful of students ahead. So we made it green, but you could make an argument for yellow. And that has been an ongoing challenge. International students, I hope you're all aware, we do face significant headwinds in international student recruitment for a variety of reasons. Not only affordability, but kind of geopolitical environments as well make international student recruitment a bit of a challenge right now. And very much holding steady on first to second year retention. And I will say, I think our first to second year retention is perhaps at a point where just holding steady is a bit of an accomplishment. I think we'd love to be able to have a goal for 80% freshman to sophomore retention, but that will be an additional lift to get there. So holding par at about 77, 78% will be an accomplishment. So let's take a look at spring. Where do we stand for our spring enrollment? And as of, I think, Melinda gave me the numbers for Monday. Total enrollment at Pitt State is 4,878, that top left-hand corner. And that total number right now is running 2.7% ahead. So 2.7% ahead in total. Now, if we unpack that number, there remains some challenge. The undergraduate total number is ahead 4.9%. Undergraduates are ahead 4.9%. Graduate numbers are running behind 5.9%. So again, we see growth in the undergraduate side, but we are seeing some challenges in the enrollment totals for graduate students And I will say some of that challenge is in the international market. So again, overall, total enrollment as of Monday, 4878, undergraduates up, graduate students down. So you can see that. Here is a very positive note, however. As of Monday, our fall to spring first-year retention number, so these are freshmen, that fall to spring number was 91.1%. That's really outstanding, the top in the last 3 years. And I want to thank every one of you for the role that you play, either in systems or behind the scenes or directly in retaining students, for the work that you do, because it's showing. It's absolutely showing. That's done one at a time. So 91.1% spring retention. We have, of course, though, 20th day is until February 16th. So we'll continue to do this work, which may help us increase those numbers, but we also have students that make decisions to exit as well. So we'll ride that variable train up and down until then. All right, I thought it would be helpful just to lift up one component of the retention work that is done. I want to say thanks to our faculty for their mentoring work that they do with students, our staff that connect with students. I also want to lift up the work, I know you're out here, the academic advisors do, just to give an example of the way each student is retained, one student at a time. So I mentioned before that freshman class, 980 students, that's full-time freshmen. So there's 980. 891 of those students have met with their academic advisor, usually for an hour or more, looked through the courses that they have opportunity to take, and then registered for the spring semester. So that's one at a time, 891 students. And we know we have 30 students who have been advised. They actually met with Thomas and all the various academic advisors, but they still haven't registered yet. So we know where they are. Right? So we have those students, they're on a list. We're seeking them out. We also have 31 students that we know we've advised, but they have chose to depart. They have a variety of reasons that they will be leaving Pitt State. And then we also know that there are 22 students that have been advised, but they have some sort of a hold that they need to remove before they can register for the spring. So that might be academic, it might be financial, it might be behavioral, whatever the case is. So we know exactly who they are. And then we have 49 students, in the parlance of our time. Students like to say, they're ghosting us, right? We can't connect with these students for the life of us. They just will not respond. So I think the power of this slide is to give you a sense of the way we go after these students one soul at a time to try to help them find success in their transition from fall to spring. So thanks to all, thanks to academic advisors specifically for the work that you're doing. All right, so that's retention. Now let me just wrap up with a couple ideas about new student recruitment for the fall. I share this slide both out of excitement, but then also out of a bit of trepidation. Because that number to the right, this is the number of freshman applications for the fall of 2026. Right? If you're in enrollment, you always like to see those trend lines rising to the right? So much of what we do is looking for growth. And we're seeing that growth. When I first arrived to Pitt State, one of my priorities was to work with the senior administration and the admission and marketing staff to bring more applicants to the top of our funnel. I was just convinced that, for instance, back in 2023, for us to enroll a class of 1,000 students out of an admit pool or an app pool of, 2,055, that app pool is just not big enough, right? So over the last 3 years, we've worked with external partners and our friends in marketing and communications to drive that application level higher. And one of those priorities was to begin recruiting not just seniors when they're just coming to the party, but to recruit sophomores and juniors and get Pitt State's brand in their visibility and in their heart and mind earlier. And of these applications we have now, 3,630 apps, we know that almost 700 of those apps we began recruiting as high school sophomores and juniors. So that strategy is now working. Now, the piece that's important that we recognize is as that top end of the funnel gets bigger, the percentage of students enroll, which is what we call the yield rate, that yield rate's going to come down. It just, on the basis of math, that's what happens. But our overall goal is to shoot for a class in the neighborhood of 1,000, 1,050, maybe even challenge towards 1,100 on that freshman class size for next fall. So at this point, we're in a good position. We have some challenges going forward, but in terms of domestic first-year freshmen, that application number looks like it's competitive. And I won't take the rest of the time for transfers, international, etc. But in terms of our freshman pool at this point, we are in a good spot. All right, on the graduate side, Lisa, I know you weren't prepared for this, but I wanted to put Lisa's picture up. We're very excited about a 20-foot picture of Lisa. Yeah. Sorry. Very excited to announce that there is the reconstitution of our Office of Graduate and Continuing Studies at Pittsburgh State University, and I'm so grateful for Lisa's willingness to provide leadership in collaboration with Provost Dr. Bond and myself to identify what will be our growth areas and opportunities in graduate student enrollment going forward. You can tell from the data I shared prior, it's one of our challenge areas, is graduate recruitment and admission. So, as they say, thank you for your service, Lisa. Yes, indeed. And then I'll end my time with just a reminder of overall what we're trying to accomplish in terms of that net 700 student goal. One of the pieces that was discussed and reviewed this fall in terms of enrollment planning was try to unpack what that 700 student number looks like, right? So if we take a look at the chart, we can take fall 2025 enrollment and break it down by college. So for instance, we know there are 1,854 students studying in the College of Arts and Sciences, 1854. That constitutes 32% of overall enrollment. Make sense, right? 32%. So one of the conversations that we've been having with deans and program directors is, can we pursue proportional enrollment growth as it relates to overall enrollment with each college and their proportion of total growth within the 700? So, for instance, 32%, you can check me, I hope this is right, 32% of 700 is that 224 number that you see there. If we look at education, 20% of the overall number, 1881, that would be 140 students. The next is business, 18% of that overall number would be 126, and technology, 154. So to finalize the enrollment growth plan, and Mark will be unpacking some of this here in a moment, is to identify what is the growth target not only for the university, we know that, 700, but we also know that the breakdown within the university or within each one of the colleges will be these proportional numbers. So that's the plan going forward in terms of recruitment and getting on that 5, 6, 7 path for the future, right? And I'm excited to be able to turn over the microphone and the clicker here today to Mark Diakopoulos. He is going to be presenting in Dr. Bond's stead. And I noticed when I first saw Mark this fall, this spring when we were planning for this presentation, come on up, Mark, he had a very celebratory new hairdo, which I thought was really appropriate, right? And then I found out why. Congratulations. I think you've just been newly published, is that right?
Yes.
In a piece with a new authorship with Springer Publications.
Yep.
God bless you. HLC, beginning a self-study credit. Whew. That's a tough one, Mark, but I'm proud you're doing that work. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mark, and you'll take it from here.
Thank you.
It's the big button in the middle.
Big button in the middle. There
All
we
right,
go.
there you go.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we're going to talk about the academic investments that we need to do to reach these goals. And you've seen these before. As you know, we looked quite carefully at the data and what were the enrollment drivers that were going to help us meet these goals. And the first one we said was student demand. Do our students want to take these classes? Which courses have interest in students. Do they want to actually take part in these things? Then we looked at industry demand. Where are the jobs? What are our students going to do and be successful as they leave this place? What's the capacity for growth in each program? That's a key factor. Some programs can grow better than others, and some are really positioned well to grow better than others. And then what can we invest as an institution? And Susan's already shown you this before, so we don't have to go into too much detail. But these were the 4 metrics we used to decide what areas can we actually get this growth to happen in. And in the undergraduate area, as you can see, we've seen this before. These were some of the programs that were identified that could help move growth forward, okay? Now, here's the thing. Some programs that aren't mentioned here are already at capacity. Nursing, for example, there's not really any room for nursing to grow. It's already doing what it should do. It's at, go back one. It's already at top level of its capacity. So if it keeps doing what it's doing, it can't grow any further. But these areas here that we've outlined, they can grow. And there's things we can do to help them grow, okay? If you're not mentioned in one of these, it doesn't matter. You're probably in the foundational area doing all that sterling work that we need to do to make sure our students get their gen eds, which without which we can't get them to a degree. So that's really important. Or you may be in a situation where you're able to reposition what you do. And that could mean changing curricula, changing our names. Sometimes what we call our programs isn't what students are looking for. And so we've got to make sure we're looking for the right things and the right names. Okay? So we can make sure things are on the catalogue that make sense, that can be found. All this appeals to student enrollment and student growth. Now, what's really exciting is in these areas here, there's already things happening that are helping us grow. And the next slide we're going to show you is going to show you some of these things. I could talk through each of these one at a time, but Susan did that at the last meeting anyway, so we're not going to do that. But a good example is if you look at criminal justice, sort of 5 or 6 down there on the list. And we've got that new facility being built, the KBI facility. And that's a really good opportunity for growth in criminal justice because we're going to have people there who are experts in the field who we'll have access to. We'll have classrooms in that facility. We'll have a chance for our students to take internships. So that is a real appealing factor for students who are interested in criminal justice. They might want to come here rather than somewhere else because of what we can offer them. But here's some of the things that are already happening. And you'll see that there's all sorts of things going on. Another good example is the Connect Ed stuff going on with education. That group's getting out and recruiting from teachers and existing teachers to get them into the graduate schools. So you'll see that there's already progress happening in the undergraduate area, but we've also identified areas in the graduate programs too. And here's our growth areas for graduate school. See, we've got education, engineering, technology, health, humour, performance, rec, history, material science, MBA, nursing, psychology, and social work. Again, if you're not in that list, it doesn't mean that that's a problem. It just means that we haven't yet identified where we can grow you. And you're either foundational or in a position where you've got to reposition what you do a little bit. Okay, so that's sort of where we're at with these things. And again, last time we did this presentation, we didn't say very much about what was going on with the graduate enrollment, but we have things in place now. With Lisa in place and her office, thank you, Lisa, right, we now have lots of potential here. We've got our partnership with EAB, with the office there, that's going to help grow enrollment. We've got by having hired Lisa, we now have staffing support, which is going to be really important with our graduate recruitment. Okay, we have a unified recruiting strategy. Again, with the Office of Graduate and Continuing Programs, we have a graduate recruiter coming into place, and we're using SLATE training to support and enhance our graduate enrollment efforts. We're investing in faculty. Susan said last time, I think we hired, let me get the numbers right, I want to say 37 faculty in the last year, 28 of whom were tenure track, 9 of whom were contingent. So that's a lot of investment going on. So we've got faculty coming in all the time to help us do our work. And of course, the research and grant funding is now under academic affairs, so we can help position that to help graduate enrollment too. There's a lot going on. It's very exciting that the work has already started in moving us forward. And to tell you a bit more about how that's going to be afforded, I'm going to pass over to Doug.
Well, thank you. It's good to be with you again this morning, and I'm going to pick up really with several things that have already been mentioned earlier today and kind of connect them to a couple of additional pieces. Let's start with that 5, 6, 7 plan that's been mentioned a couple of times before. I particularly like the $6 million, always gets me excited. And so we do want to focus on how some of those investments we've talked about and how some of those trends that Carl talked about are leading to financial gains for us. Those financial gains will be felt first and foremost in our tuition revenue. And so this is a graph of our tuition revenue over a long period of time. And I think there's a really big positive to see, and that's that change in direction that we've seen in the last 3 years. We're far enough into the year this year that I can say with confidence we're going to grow our tuition revenue for the 3rd year in a row. And that's very exciting and certainly helping us move in the right direction. Now, balancing that a little bit is that it's not fast enough, right? If we're going to hit that $6 million goal, if we're going to grow by that magnitude, this level of growth won't get us there. And so we're going to have to build upon those positives that are already happening and add a few more to them and grow it at a little faster clip. And the sooner we do that, the better, right? The more impact that will happen. But it's a long race, right? It'll be a slow and steady gain that we're shooting for. So that really leads into starting to think about next fiscal year, right? It's always about this time of the year that the budget cycle for next fiscal year, next academic year begins slowly at first and then ramps up in speed as the spring comes upon us. And so we've started thinking about what does fiscal year 27 look like. And I always like to start that process thinking about our 2 biggest revenue streams, the state funding and state appropriations that come our way, and then that tuition revenue we were just talking about. And so starting with tuition revenue, what we were just referring to, right? How much faster can we grow that number? How much can we grow that tuition revenue number in 27 will have a really significant impact on our budget process. And so we'll certainly spend some time over the spring kind of evaluating the trajectory we're on, the things Carl talked about, and evaluating what's going to help move the needle and move those in maybe an even more positive direction and to see where we can land there. That'll certainly be impactful. And I think it'll be particularly important this year because of the other side of this slide, the state funding side. Frankly, that environment, that situation, it looks a little more pessimistic at this point than it has the last few years. We should be very thankful to our state legislature as they've made a number of investments in us over the last several years. And we certainly didn't expect that they would continue to grow that number year after year after year forever. And so some of this is expected, but the general environment around state funding is one of cuts this year, of reductions to state spending, not increases to state spending. Dr. Newsom mentioned being in Topeka earlier this week. I was there with him, and we had a chance to testify at a budget hearing. And while the tone in the room was actually pretty positive, I think our message was well received and well understood. Kind of the overall tone in Topeka was one of cuts. And higher education is definitely part of that equation, part of the area of focus, maybe one of the primary areas of focus as they think about different ways to reduce state spending. And so that's concerning. Now, we don't really know what that impact's going to be to us, right? That's a general starting point. There's a lot of steps to go in the process. Certainly our PSU team will make a strong case in Topeka to describe the importance of what we do for the state, and we'll just have to see what the impact of that is. But it's certainly one to watch carefully, and it's certainly one that could impact our budget process this year, maybe to a greater degree than it has in the past. And so then moving on from revenue to kind of an overall budget view, I always think about that illustration of a balancing act with your budget. And our budget really isn't that different than your budget at home, right? You've got to look at your expenses and you got to look at your revenues and you got to make sure the two are generally in alignment, certainly over the longer run. And so we do very much the same thing. We look at the things that we expect and want to spend money on, the things that might grow in their cost, the things that we'd like to invest more in, and we also look at the revenues that are coming in and how those are going to change over time. And we've got to make choices and decisions that help us to keep that in balance. You know, we're early in the process, so this list will grow, but as we think about budget priorities and investments and expenses going forward, we know there are some areas that are going to be areas of focus for us. Compensation is always an area of focus. It's incredibly important to us. Some of those are things we control and can make our own decisions about. Some, like the cost of benefits, we have less control of, but we've got to manage and we've got to understand. And so we'll be certainly watching that. We know the Great Gorilla Scholarship Program has been incredibly successful. We know it's been a contributor to some of those positive enrollment trends that Carl talked about. We also know that the cost of that program is going to continue to grow. We're still in the rollout phase of that program, and so we've really got one more year of growth as we fully implement that across all of our undergraduate population. So there's going to be some incremental costs there. And we know that Gorilla Rising, right, our College of Business building and our new student housing building, the best hotel downtown, are going to open next year. And there's some operational costs that come along with that, right? That's not a comprehensive list, but certainly some of the things, a starter list of the things we're going to have to think about as we build the budget for next year. And then, of course, on the revenue side, right, again, what's state funding going to do at the end of the day, right? Is it going to decrease or stay steady? If it decreases, is it a lot or little? And then on the other side, tuition revenue. Are we going to move the needle on tuition revenue? So with that, we'll continue to try to balance those equations. And something I think we are collectively very good at, but we're going to have to really focus on this year, is that comment in the middle, right? We've got to continue to be really efficient and thoughtful about the things we spend money on, right? Honestly, some of those investments we'll want to make this coming year, we're going to have to self-fund those. We're going to have to find things that we can spend a little bit less on so that we can invest in things that will have a bigger impact and be more. And so it's a challenging environment, but one that I'm sure we can be successful in. All right, let's switch gears from budget to financial elements or facility investments and facility projects. And boy, there's a lot going on right now. You know, I don't know if I remember a time when we've had so many big, exciting projects going on. And I think you're probably familiar with most or maybe even all of these, but I thought I'd provide just a really quick status on where some of these projects stand. So first of all, I think that maybe the biggest, at least in my mind, is the Gorilla Rising project, right? We've got the College of Business building and the Best Hotel building, and the news there is fantastic. We are on schedule, on track, on plan, on budget. Everything is heading exactly where we expect it to, and we are going to open those two facilities this coming August. So I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be an instrumental change for our students and for our faculty and staff. We also have one that maybe isn't quite as visible, but I think very impactful as well, is the Prove-Out facility. Remember, that's that expansion to the Tyler Research Center that provides space for prove-out manufacturing runs and testing capabilities, has a significant economic impact on our region, and also provides opportunities for our students as well. That's also underway and going to be finished sometime during the 26-27 year. So sometime in the next year. I didn't put a page up here for it, but right next door is the outdoor track project. You know, that's really the project that's going to finish first. It's going to be finished later this spring. You know, and it connects to these other two projects. All three of those, Gorilla Rising, the Prove-Out facility, and the outdoor track, both in addition to being incredible assets for our campus life, they're incredible assets for our region and our community. They all provide significant economic impact to our area, which is good for all of us. Another project that's incredibly impactful is, of course, our utility tunnel project, right? We experience this every time we walk across the Oval or try to walk across the Oval, right? And it's also coming along. It's on track and on schedule as well. We're going to start to see kind of some visible signs of progress in the coming months. But it should finish up late summer or early fall, and it'll be kind of out of sight and probably forgotten pretty quickly, but an incredibly important project. The Crime Lab project was mentioned earlier. Mark mentioned this one a minute ago. That's really a KBI project, but we're partnering with them on the project, and it brings some great benefits for our academic space as well. And then finally, a project that's not physically underway yet, but is underway in a planning and will get underway in a more significant way in the coming months, is our STEM facility upgrades, our science lab upgrade projects that will impact Yates and Heckert Wells Hall in a significant way. And so we're through the approval process for that project and into the planning stage of that project. We'll be hiring an architecture firm to do the detailed design work in just the next few weeks and really get into that design work over the spring, and then we'll launch the first phase of that project shortly thereafter. So a lot of exciting stuff going on in facility space that makes a really positive impact for our campus. All right, with that, I'll hand it back to Dr. Newsome to move into the next topic.
Thanks, sir. So thank you, Doug and Carl and Mark. And one of the things that attracted me to Pittsburg State was the incredible momentum that this university has. And I think you've seen that in the presentation today with the fact that we are growing. We have a plan for additional growth. $200 million worth of capital infrastructure improvement on our campus. I was in Topeka, as Doug said earlier, talking to our legislators, and they asked me questions about economic development and the impact that Pittsburg State has on Pittsburg and Southeast Kansas. And it's pretty phenomenal because we can look at these projects, specifically 10 years after this building was built, 10 years after the Plaster Center was built. And these were projects that were collaborative from our community and our city and our state and our donors and alumni, and they have generated significant amount of money and economic development for our community. For instance, you may not know this, but Block 22, of course, was 3 buildings that, quite frankly, I think were serving their purpose as a house for many pigeons and raccoons and whoever else could get into that building through the boards that were over the windows. Probably 3 buildings that were probably slated to be demolished that would have changed really the whole character of our downtown. Through the generosity of the Commerce Department at the state, through the generosity of the city and the county, and a significant amount of donor gifts and some creative financing that Doug and his team put together, we were able to bring those buildings back, and now we know a year and a half later, they are thriving residential retail spaces in downtown Pittsburg, Kansas. And Block 22 itself generated $1.4 million in additional sales tax for the city of Kansas, for the city of Pittsburg, Kansas last year. And that's pretty phenomenal. Yeah, let's give that a round of applause. So we know that the outdoor track is going to do probably tenfold what the Plaster Center does, and it's done some amazing things over the few years, generating millions of dollars worth of revenue. I think the projection for the track, just in the first few years after we open it, is about $3.6 million. The KBI facility is going to do the same. And we know that the Prove Out facility is going to really bring a whole different level of industry and commerce to our community. So those are the kind of things that we really are excited about, that I'm really excited about. And I just want to say thank you to our leadership. We have a great leadership team here who's doing a phenomenal job, and I just want to say thank you to them and appreciate what you are doing. So Vicki and I, thank you very much. Vicki and I have had the Whirlwind Tour in the fall. Vicki's in the back, she's here. We spent a lot of times with primarily our academic departments, learning about our institution. Did spend some time with some of our staff and our student-facing areas. We're going to do that this spring as a priority. But we learned a lot of things. We learned that you better like fried chicken. Don't tell people which fried chicken you like, but you better like fried chicken. We learned that if you want to get your steps in on your Apple Watch, just go take a tour of the Crossland College of Technology. You know, we learned that we better be ready because guerrilla athletics is something pretty special. You know, an MIAA championship in women's soccer and in football and in cross country, and every single one of our teams this year qualified for postseason play, which is an amazing thing for every one of our fall sports. But, yeah. But what we really learned, and when we looked at each other and said, you know, what is so special about Pittsburg State University in Pittsburg, Kansas, we learned that it's you, that it's our people, that it's our students, that it's the passion that each and one of you have to make yourselves, your partners, your colleagues, our students, our alumni, our friends, our donors better. And we talked about that a lot. We talk about that idea of let's be a university that sees something in people they don't see in themselves so we can give them the tools and the capacity and the ability to be better. So as we've learned how to be champions for Pittsburg State, and y'all have done an amazing job of doing that and will continue to do that in terms of us being able to come to your space and see your space and talk to you about your programs and what you do for students, so that when I go to Topeka or next week when I'm in Washington, D.C. or wherever it may be, that I can be a champion for Pittsburg State. We looked at each other and said, how do we capture this in terms of long-term sustainability for this unique, special thing that we have at Pittsburg State? So I started looking at strategically, where are we as a university? What is our plan? What is our path? What is our momentum moving forward? And so y'all, before we got here, y'all had done yeoman's work. Y'all had put a lot of time, energy, and treasure into developing what is an amazing strategic plan for Pittsburg State. And this just gives you a little background on that. So in 2016, y'all launched a new strategic plan, Pathway to Prominence. 2022, the campus efforts coalesced around what we would see and what was happening then and what was ahead. And then in 2023, you launched a new strategic plan along with a new mission, vision, charter, design, principles, goals, and strategies for the institution. 2023-25, you put in a lot of work and effort. Teams across campus developed hundreds of initiatives to support this plan. And then in 2025, we introduced this new idea of academic program plans paired with strategic plan and enrollment plan for this growth. This idea of 5 years, $6 million, 700 students. But when I looked at this, I thought, this is great. They've done a lot of work. They've really done a lot of things. But how is this implemented? And how is this realistic in terms of really how we transform the culture at Pittsburg State University into one that is truly, truly dedicated to the success of our students when they leave us? To seeing something in people they don't see in themselves so we can give them the tools they need to be better for themselves and better for others. So we've taken this strategic plan that you all put together, and yes, it was complicated, and yes, it was a challenge for some in conversations I had about the mechanics of what you're responsible for, what you're accountable for. I did a quick little kind of scenario where I set myself up as one of our departments, and I looked at the strategic plan through the Gorilla Plan software that we have, which we're going to continue to use. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But for me to respond to the strategic plan from that position, I think I had 16 different foundational principles I had to respond to, and about 1,000 different items that I could check off to say that I was working the strategic plan. And I just felt like that was something that, quite frankly, we couldn't embrace as a campus, and something that we couldn't use, again, to change our culture or to drive our culture in a way that really made us what we want to be at Pittsburgh State, not only for our students and for each other, but for our state and our community and for all of Kansans. So today I'm going to roll out what we're calling Access Pitt State. And Access Pitt State is a streamlined way forward. We've taken our current strategic plan that you all worked so hard on, gave up so much time and energy to develop, and we have distilled that down to a very simple, quite frankly, one-page strategic plan that we're calling Access Pitt State. It's a bold initiative to connect people, ideas, and traditions that will open doors to opportunity and transformation for our future. And again, continue that mission of making lives better through education. I saw in our previous plan iteration something that was very, very transactional. I want our strategy to be transformational. There's a story about a couple of guys named Elias and Silas. Elias and Silas lived in a town that the majority of the workers in that town, the majority of the capacity for that town to grow and be better was in a sawmill. Everyone basically worked in the sawmill, except Elias and Silas. Elias owned the general store in that town. And Elias's life was stocking shelves and buying new product and selling as many as he could so he could make a lot of money. Silas was a carpenter. Silas's job was to create things and build things. And Silas's one priority as a carpenter was to hire great apprentices who could study what Silas did, make themselves a craftsman, and go change people's lives by creating something wonderful that they can enjoy as part of their life. Well, one day, the mill broke down. The mill broke down and the town was crippled. What did Elias do? Elias went and bought every part he could find that would service that mill, put it on his shelf, raised the price, and became one of the wealthiest people in the world, selling parts to fix the mill so the town could survive. Selling parts at outrageous prices that were gouged prices, that were prices that really sold those parts only to benefit Elias. What did Silas do? Silas gathered a group of people and he taught them how to build parts to fix the mill. He taught them the value of teamwork and the value of doing something that is greater than himself so that the collective, so that the whole town could thrive and survive. And that's the difference between transitional, because Elias was transitional, and Silas was transformational. So when the town survived, Elias was the most hated person, didn't have any friends, didn't have anybody that cared for him. When he passed away, nobody came to his funeral to celebrate his life. And Silas became the hero of the community. Because Silas taught them how to transform their lives instead of being transactional in their lives. So our new focus and streamlined way of looking at this through Access Pitt State is going to focus on those things that are already in our plan, and that is strategic goals around 4 evergreen strategies. You're going to see a little theme here. You know, we talked about 5, 6, 7. Well, this theme is 4. So maybe we're 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 4 strategies, there's 4 initiatives. There just ironically happens to be 4 pillars in front of Russ Hall. There happens to be 4 letters in the word Pitt. These aren't corny things, or they may be corny things, but hopefully they'll help you relate to it. They'll help you remember it. They'll help you maybe embrace it. And those 4 pillars are going to be student success and access, community and economic impact, innovation and scholarship, culture and sustainability. These come directly out of all the work you've already done, all the work you've done over the last couple of years to develop what was our strategic plan. So the first one that is going to support these 4 pillars, that is the first initiative for Access Pitt State, is Access People. And we say Access People, we're talking about initiatives and strategies that will unlock the potential in all of us. We'll open new doors for prospective students, ensuring that our institution remains accessible, affordable, and welcoming. And then we will be targeted in terms of our outreach to streamline admissions and support for personnel to create pathways for all students to achieve their academic and career goals. We do some amazing things at our institution, but let's leverage all those amazing things. Let's think about what it would look like if we were able to provide more teachers to schools in the state of Kansas. Last time I saw something on in some literature, it said something about the fact that within the last few years there have been a shortage of teachers in Kansas in K through 12 schools of about 2,000 teachers. I was asked by a legislator, not publicly but once, why do all of the institutions, the regional institutions specifically, have education programs? Well, the answer is because we need 2,000 teachers in the state of the state of Kansas. And we can't fulfill that need with just 1 or 2 universities. We can't fulfill that need because teachers, like nurses and other professions, tend to gravitate to jobs and careers in the areas where they receive those trainings. Specifically, teachers who go do their student teaching in those areas around where they get their training. So what if we could make Pittsburg State University a larger access point for people who want to enter the teaching profession? What if we did that with some innovative ideas like, if you graduate from Pittsburg State University with a teaching degree and you get your certificate and you promise us that you'll teach in the state of Kansas for 5 years, then Pittsburg State will either help you or fully pay for your master's degree. What if we did that with nursing? What if we did that with construction? What if we did that with all of those careers that will help us drive better success in Kansas? So we can be a university that can access people, help them get on a path to success, that then they will be people that will contribute to the success of Kansas. Access innovation. See a theme here? People, P-I, innovation. We catalyze research, economic development, and community engagement by fostering partnerships with governing bodies, industry leaders, and local organizations. Our commitment to discovery and collaboration positions us as a leader in turning ideas into practical solutions. I think that's the key here. When a lot of universities talk about innovation, they talk about research. We've done amazing things in the last few years to increase the research that's done at Pittsburg State University. We equate a lot of times research and innovation. But we're going to be innovative because we're going to have programs that teach people how to solve real-world problems in applied situations. We're going to have research that supports teaching and learning that supports research. Because then at the end of the day, our ultimate goal is what our students do when they leave us. And we need to be on the cutting edge of innovation so that our students can go out there and be successful in their careers. We got to make sure that when they are sitting next to another person in their job or place of employment, that they've got as many arrows in their quiver as their colleague does, because if they don't, they're not going to be as valuable to their employer. They're not going to get the promotion. They're not going to get the compensation increase. There's a term I use a lot that you may have heard me use, that you may have seen, you're going to see it a lot. We are going to be state of the industry when it comes to who we are at Pittsburg State. I shy away from state of the art because state of the art means that we just go out and buy the best and the shiniest and the coolest and whatever that may be at that moment, and that's great. But what we need to have in our classrooms and what our students need to be using in terms of applied learning is what they're going to use when they get out into industry. And 99% of industry is not state of the art, it's state of the industry. We're also going to access talent. We're going to access talent in a way that we train people again to solve real-world problems. We're going to connect employers, faculty, staff, and students to dynamic ecosystems of professional development and training. This is through internships and workforce development and other things that we can, as a university, cultivate our talent to meet the evolving needs of a global economy, and especially the economy of Southeast Kansas and our region and our state. We're going to be a university that we know has a lot of capacity and resources because of the generosity of the taxpayers of the state of Kansas, the generosity of our donors and our families and our friends and others. And we're going to be a university that if someone needs to access the talent of Pittsburg State University, whether they be a student or an industry or a company or any institution in the state of Kansas, that we're going to be available for them to access that talent. And then we're going to lean heavy on our tradition. We have a legacy of excellence at this institution, inside and outside the classroom. And we're going to lean heavy on that while it's going to strengthen our relationship with donors, with friends, with alumni. And we're going to celebrate that history by investing in our future. Ensure that we are sustainable, that we continue that history of excellence, and that we have pride in who we are and who we're going to be. Nick Saban talks about his career as a coach now that he's retired. And Nick Saban points back to one moment in time that really changed his trajectory as a football coach. Really changed his trajectory as a person. And if you've heard me tell this story, I apologize, but I think it's a great one. So Nick Saban is coaching at Michigan State. And Michigan State is pretty average. Nobody really knows who he is. He's just a coach at Michigan State. They're having a pretty average year. And Michigan State's about to play Ohio State, who had just won the national championship the year before. If Susan was here, she'd probably give us a little yip or whatever they do at Ohio State. They were playing them at Ohio State, heavily underdogged. I think they were having a mediocre 500 year. And he knew that probably if he didn't turn things around, he was no longer going to be the coach at Michigan State. At that point, his career would probably be over. So he got his coaches together, his assistant coaches together, and said, hey, we need to change our thought. We need to change our philosophy. You know, we're all about celebrating wins and losses and rah, and let's go win the football game. And when we do good, we pat each other on the back, and when we do bad, we scold each other. And he said, that's just not working. So one of his assistant coaches said, Coach, we got to be more transformational than transactional. We're just transactional right now. We're just worried about the next game, the next week, winning and losing. We got to be different. So Saban thought about that, and he went back to the drawing board, and that week, before they played Ohio State, they started talking to their players about, you know what, let's don't worry about the outcome of the game. Let's worry about the outcome of every play. So if you are a quarterback, go get the ball from center, and all you need to worry about is what's happening in that moment. And when you throw a pass and it's a touchdown, then celebrate it. And then turn the page and get to the next one. And if you throw a pass and it's an interception, then say, oh my gosh, I can't do that again. Learn from it, turn the page, and get to the next moment. And just try to win every play. Don't try to win the game. Just try to win every play. Try to win every play in a way that you know that that play may be the crucial play that changes the course of that game, but try to win every play knowing that you've got 10 other people around you who are trying to do the exact same thing. Who are trying to win that moment instead of win the game. Well, there may be some folks in the back that follow college football that know that Michigan State won that game against Ohio State, one of the largest upsets in regular season in college football, probably history. Nobody saw it coming. Nick Saban went on to, I think, qualify for 16 of the next 17 years that he coached. He was in a bowl game. He won 6 or 7 national championships, National Coach of the Year. He'll be in the Hall of Fame. He is arguably, probably and historically, one of the greatest football coaches in the history of college football. Because Nick Saban, and he'll tell you this, changed his philosophy to be transformational instead of transactional, and that philosophy is one that has long-term impact, sustainability, and leads you to long-term success instead of short-term success. Yeah, Elias was successful because Elias made a whole lot of money selling a whole lot of parts that he sold because nobody else had them, because he controlled the market. But that was short-term success. Silas taught people how to fish. Silas taught people how to fix a mill. Silas taught people how to live as together in a community and celebrate each other's success. And Silas was transformational. So next steps. I think it's important that we continue to have these conversations. I'm a firm believer in you got to say things a whole lot of times before it starts to sink in and before things really come to fruition. Speak it into happening. So we're going to launch a new thing this spring. It's going to be our attempt at transparency and collaboration, shared governance, and how we do this together. And that is, we're going to have an open-end meeting before every semester, one in the fall, one in the spring. We're going to have 4 town halls. We're going to have 2 in the fall, 2 in the spring. We haven't decided what these town hall topics are going to be, what they're going to look like, but we're going to have 4 town halls. We had one in the fall. I thought it was very successful. I thought it went really well. We're going to launch a new thing called Lunch Chats, Lunch and Learn, and we're going to do 2 of those each semester. And basically it's going to be a very informal session where the university will bring drinks and desserts, and you either go to the crossing and grab something, or the cafeteria, or bring your lunch, and we'll just sit down and we'll introduce a topic that we may feel important, and we'll just open it up for talk and discussion. We might have 3 people in the room. We might have 300. We don't know. It's just going to be a time for us to sit and visit and chat. We're going to continue with the monthly messages that I send out. We're going to continue with again, something else I learned. We have Pittsburgh Daily, but it doesn't come out daily. We're going to continue with that. So those will keep happening. When we leave this meeting today, and when we have a little more time probably to talk a little bit about Access Pitt State, then Jamie Dalton is going to reach out to you. And when I say you, she's going to reach out to our colleges and our departments. It's kind of where she's building a tree right now of kind of communication. But she's going to reach out even if you just want to talk to Jamie Dalton about, hey, I'm doing something unique at Pittsburgh State University that I think supports Access Pitt. And she's going to come to you, and we're not going to go through that process of you need to build a strategic plan with, 4 different initiatives that have 4 different strategies, that have 4 different substrategies. No. If you want to do that, if you need to do that, I know some of you, I know business does that for accreditation. You can continue to do that for your department, for your program, for your college. But when it comes to the strategic plan of our university as a whole, Jamie's going to come to you and she's going to ask you for one thing. She's going to ask you to develop one initiative that supports Pittsburg State and Access Pitt State. And she's going to ask you for that initiative with one parameter, and that is it has to support Access Pitt State, and it has to be achievable in 1 year. And it's actually, the first one's going to be a little bit longer because we're going to give you July to July, so if you start working on it now. And then we're going to celebrate those who complete that, who are successful. My thought is that we will have some sort of event at the end of the year and we'll give awards. We'll set up a committee and they'll look at all of the completed Access Pitt State projects, and the one who's the most innovative will get an award. The one that has the most responsiveness or support of people or talent or tradition will be recognized. And then we'll go through the process again. So we're going to, instead of asking you to do all these things and chart all these courses and send all these reports back, we're going to ask each and every one of you, either individually or collectively, and the individual part is not required, it's voluntary, but collectively as our departments and our colleges and others, to develop one initiative that supports Access Pitt State that you can complete and assess in a year. And then you'll do another one next year. And eventually, when we wind all that up, we will have multiple foundational principles with multiple initiatives and objectives. And quite honestly, it's going to look a lot like the 1,000 that I talked about a few minutes ago. But it's not 1,000 that each one of you are responsible for. It's just focusing and being intentional and strategic with one. So I'm excited for the spring semester. I'm excited for what's happening at Pittsburg State University and what's going to happen. I learned in Topeka that we have something that is very unique to other institutions in our state. And that is that we have some momentum and a plan and a vision for the future. And it's going to be a great day to be a gorilla. All right, so thank you all. I think if I'm right, we've got 18 minutes, give or take. You gave me the 6-7 there, Abby. Sorry. Any questions? Come on, somebody's got a question. I think Audra's got the mic. There she is. Got one down here, Audra.
Oh, is this thing on? Okay. Our campus is beautiful, and we take a lot of pride in that. Our facilities, top-notch, whether it's athletics, academics, or whatever. We used to host the Kansas 5A State Football Championship. We used to host the Kansas Shrine Bowl. Both of those events are in Emporia now on several-year contracts. How do we get students and their parents and their families back on our campus for these events that aren't necessarily our events, but allow us to showcase our campus and our facility and everything else? It's not necessarily a recruiting trip, but just to get them here to see what Pittsburg State's all about, because we're a little bit off the beaten path as far as the state of Kansas goes.
That's a great question, and I'm not going to speak to it directly on the football side. I think that I don't know the history there or where we're at, but I would love to have state championships in athletics or regional championships or playoff games or whatever they are on our campus. I think it's important from a standpoint of we have to bring families and students, pre-college young students to our campus. Part of the choices that they make when they choose a campus is one, do they feel comfortable there? Do they feel at home? And those things happen because of familiarity. So, not speaking to those specifically, but I can speak to the fact that I have asked our cabinet and our executive committee to start looking for those kind of opportunities. We had, Gorilla, what's the event we have, Carl, where we bring in all the high school students and we're doing Rumble in the Jungle, yeah. And that's great, that's an intentional recruiting event. But we've got to have some that are less intentional. So we've got to do a better job, and I think a great initiative of Access Pitt would be just that. How do we bring more students and their families onto campus non-intentionally in environments where they can just feel who we are at Pitt State? And that may be through summer camps. It may be through high school competitions. We had a meeting this week with an organization out of Kansas City who does a makerspace type competition that kind of starts with a vision of a product. They develop the product. They try to have to sell the product, and it's a competition that's happening across the country. And there's an opportunity that I guess a year from now, because you have to plan it about a year out, that we could bring them here and they could do their competition on our campus. So those are the type of things that we have to embrace and we have to be open to. There may be a time when we have an office that all they do is coordinate the logistics of helping faculty, staff, and departments bring people to Pittsburg State for those type of activities and those types of camps and things and that sort of thing. I haven't been here for a summer yet, but I would hope that if we don't have a very vibrant, active campus in the summer with non-Pittsburg State students, that we try to strive to find avenues and capacity to do so. Okay.
Dr. Newsom, as you've mentioned, you and Vicki have had a whirlwind 5 or 6 months here, and you've experienced a lot. I'm curious, what have been the biggest surprises that you've experienced? Kind of a two-part question, both challenges that the university might face that you hadn't expected until you got here and saw things, also surprises along the lines of, wow, I knew this was good, but I had no idea it was going to be this good.
Yeah, I'll start with the surprise of, wow, I knew this was going to be good, but I didn't think it was going to be this. I mean, I tell the story of how we came and how we went to the pit and, opened the door and it was Pittsburg State people all over the place and just really that sense of community and all the gorillas outside the businesses. You can see all that, but until you actually start living it, it just doesn't, your reality or your perception of that is just not really what it is. I think one of the biggest surprises, or this is really cool, really neat kind of thing is, and it just happened just recently. So we went to San Antonio for a basketball tournament that we're playing in. And of course we went to San Antonio to see the basketball game, but we really went because we were having a gorilla gathering. And I'm thinking, we'll have a gorilla gathering in San Antonio, Texas, which is a long ways away. And it'll be me and Jim and Danielle and their teams and their staffs and maybe a couple of parents that had followed the basketball team and maybe 2 or 3 alumni. I think we had about 70 people there. We had 70 gorillas in San Antonio, Texas, that quite frankly, we didn't even feed them and we couldn't get them to go away. Is that right, during Danielle? Yeah, and it was a cash bar and they still stayed. So that's who we are. That's Pitt State. We were walking, Vicki and I over Christmas were walking through an H-E-B in North Texas. Yeah, those H-E-B people, yeah. And not only did 2 people walk by me and say, "Go Gorillas," because I was wearing a gorilla. I mean, I don't leave the house without something that says gorilla on it, Pitt State. But it was 2 young people. It wasn't alumni. It was, I think they were probably high school age kids in North Texas. They walked by and said, "Go Gorillas." And in fact, I've gotten to the point now where I'll call Vicki if I'm in an airport and I'll go, "Hey, I got 4 Go Gorillas." So that is what, I mean, just what Pittsburg State really is amazing. And that's why I have a passion for this plan, because I think that's going to elevate us to a whole nother level. What was the other part of your question, John? What was the bad things or the challenges? Our challenges are the same challenges everybody else is experiencing in higher education. There's this huge conversation about, many of you know what's called the enrollment cliff. I don't see that as a challenge. I see that as an opportunity. I think there are institutions out there that are so reliant on international students. They're so reliant on graduate students. They're so reliant on, quite frankly, high school students. And our high school populations are dwindling in terms of just because of birth rates and things. We could get into that, long story. But those are challenges for us, but I see them more as opportunity, honestly. Because we are a very well-rounded, innovative institution who I think can be very nimble and can adjust to those challenges in ways that provide us with opportunity. I say this, and I said this to the legislators last week. You know, Dr. Shipp left here with a trajectory of momentum, which is amazing. But I don't think that many of us realize that I think his true legacy, when we look back 10 years from now on his presidency, will be the fact that he helped us gain the authority to award associate's degrees. So Pittsburg State University can do something that very few institutions across the country, and especially in our region, can do, and that is we can find any pathway for a student to be successful. Whether that be through a certificate, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or a doctoral degree. And I know his original vision, I think, was to make sure that students left here with something tangible when they reach that point, with those bachelor's degree seeking students, when they reach that point to have enough credits to get an associate's degree, to get that associate's degree, so if life got in the way and they had to leave or they had to stop out, they could leave here with something tangible that an employer could actually use to help them be more successful in their role in whatever career that was or job they had. And that's amazing. That's fantastic. We need to continue to champion that. But that also gives us the ability, again, to find another pathway for students. Another pathway for those folks who might not just be straight out of high school, but may have gone somewhere else and are coming back and need extra training, extra talent, extra competency to do better in their careers. I think I dodged that one as well as I could, John. Anybody else? We've got 8 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Newsom. I have a question that maybe is not as, broad. My question has to do with actually your innovation and accessibility points. We are moving, PSU is moving downtown Pittsburgh. We're going to have the best hotel for students' housing. We're going to have the School of Business, and we need to have students to transfer in a timely manner that is not going to have to over-impact the schedule for the rest of the university. I know there are schedule changes that may need to be done, but I think that our innovation and our challenge is to find a public transportation way that can transfer students in about 8 minutes from the main campus to downtown, so we don't create that excess of car commuting that's going to, I mean, to me, that's the biggest challenge. Students are going to have to jump in their car, try to find a parking lot. They cannot do that in 10 to 15 minutes. The only way is public transportation. And that's something that also, I think, would be attractive for international students, maybe graduate students. So how are you proposing to handle that challenge and that innovation and access for our students?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And you add another element in there. If for some reason the train is crossing the tracks at Broadway, Vicki and I one night were at Freddy's having a hamburger, and we were needing to be back on campus for something, and we didn't time it appropriately, and we sat in Freddy's for another 30 or 45 minutes looking at the train that was across the tracks. Great question. And I can tell you that we're already thinking about that. We're already planning. We're trying to be strategic and innovative. I had a conversation actually as early as yesterday with Doug and Carl about this, because I've tasked them to go out there and, one, assess our current public transportation resources, and then determine, and I think what they ask them to do is have some information back to me by the mid-semester point of the spring, and determine, can we either complement or infuse some more capacity into that, or do we need to do our own thing? And it may be a mixture of both, quite honestly. So my vision is that we would have better Gus bus situation. I guess that's the situation we have now, is the Gus bus, and we use a local county, city organization that helps us with that. I think they're having some conversation with them about adding another bus, adding some more routes, those sort of things. But my vision is we have shuttles that are branded Pittsburgh State shuttles that go to and from downtown, that go to and from local businesses and things, maybe Walmart, maybe that side of town, as well as Ron's and the other side of town, on a schedule that students can rely on and understand. I think there's an opportunity for us with a partner to have a branded space location downtown where that shuttle could stop and start specifically to service the best, Block 22 and Kels College of Business. So I don't have an answer for you today, but I can tell you that we have already tasked two individuals, Doug and Carl, and for them to bring whoever they need to the table to solve that problem. But it's not just about buses and shuttles, it's also about understanding how our campus operates and how we work in terms of class schedules, event schedules, those sort of things as well. So we're looking at that. I know Dr. Bond has been sharing that with faculty. Our Student Success Center has been involved in those conversations. We're trying to bring everybody to the table to formulate a plan if we need to make some modifications or changes to that, the way we operate, specifically class schedules, that we have the right people at the table that can make that decision, that can give that input. I think we've delayed that decision because we want to gather more information, and I'm looking at others in the room who can nod their heads and agree with me that I'm saying this right. But I'm just going to, I think I told y'all at one point, when you ask me my opinion, I'm going to give it to you, whether it's what you want to hear or not. Those sort of things are going to be challenges for us. They really are. But this is what I'm going to tell you, which is the harsh reality of the situation is, don't ask me whether I think those facilities should be downtown, because I'm not going to give you an answer, because they are. If we decided they shouldn't be, we can't put a truck underneath them and bring them to camp. They're there. And we're going to have 170 plus students living in those buildings. We've got a significant number of faculty and staff working in those buildings. We're going to have a significant number of students. that are taking classes in that amazing facility. And I'm happy and excited that that program and that project is there. It is going to give us tenfold success because of that. So we as a university have to work together. We have to think about, how we come together to build parts for the mill so the mill can work and the mill can run and the mill can support us. And collaboratively, we have to realize that that is a transformational project with Kels, Block 22, the best, and they need to be that for our university. I intentionally don't say the word downtown, and I'd like for us to try not to say that word because it's not the downtown campus. It's just the campus of Pittsburgh State University, and those facilities are part of our campus just like this building is. We're going to treat them the same way. We're going to approach it the same way, and that's part of who we are as an institution.
I have a question.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Jason, I'm in the communication department. On that last point, I know you said this, I just want to quickly reiterate. I hope faculty are part of those conversations about class schedule, not just the faculty at the College of Business, but the faculty here on campus. We deserve to be a part of that conversation as well. My quick question for you, just because this happened at another institution, not here at Pitt. I love everything I've heard. The 5-6-7 plan is great. My only question is, do we have a clear idea of what year one of that plan is and when year 5 will be? I used to work at an institution where it seemed like we were in year 1 of a 5-year plan for about 5 years. And nobody would ever say, hey, the first couple of years we did or didn't hit our goals. So I'm just wondering, is this academic year our first year? Does it start next year with Access Pitt? How does this, in terms of 5 years, when does that start?
Yeah, so we're in year 1. We're currently in year 1. And we will have a scoreboard. We're going to continue, I didn't say this earlier, we're going to continue to use what we called Gorilla Plan, that software piece that we have to track our strategic plan. It's going to be called Pitt Plan now, just because Pitt, Access Pitt, Pitt Plan, Gorilla Plan, Pitt Plan. Gives us a little fresh start. Jamie's going to go in and archive everything we've done to this point and set it up so that we can run it as Pitt Plan based on the metrics and things that we have here. So yeah, we're in year 1 now. And once we finish the spring, we will then do some assessment and we will look at where we stand and where we need to be for year 2. I am working on some things that I'm not ready to roll out yet around Access Pitt and around the 5-6-7 plan. That would be ways that we could celebrate that success, celebrate the wins, and not only from a departmental perspective, but from individual perspectives as well. So we'll work on that, and probably in the fall we'll be talking more about that. Okay, I think we're 10:32. We're 2 minutes over. I wanted to just close with this. Lots of great things happening on campus this spring. We'll have Chicago here on this stage. Damon John will be here on this stage. Bill Nye will be on this stage. I don't know if you know Bill Nye. He used to host a show called, I think, Bill Nye the Science Guy. But Bill Nye will be on this stage. Damon John's from Shark Tank. We've got excitement with all the things happening. Both of our men's and women's basketball teams are having a great year, and those games are a whole lot of fun to watch. We'll have, track and baseball and softball and golf and all of those other things. I hate listing them because I always forget somebody. A lot of great performances at campus. Looking forward to Apple Week. We will have some special things happening around, it's called Apple Week, right? Okay, Apple Week. I got to learn, I haven't seen it yet. We're going to have a little ceremony in here one day just to kind of formalize my arrival, and we'll get you some more information about that. And then we're going to launch a big campaign as part of Apple Week for what Doug talked about earlier, the Heckert Wells Project, to try to get us, we're in a place where we can start phase 1 of that, but we really want to get to a place where we can do the entire $50+ million project. So we're going to make that part of Apple Week. Apple Week's going to be a really STEM-focused kind of week, and that's going to be part of that. So I'll leave you with this. We want to start every session and end every session with really the true reason why we do what we do. And this is a graduate that many of you may know, Kaylee Woody. Kaylee graduated from Pittsburgh State in 2016 with a BS, and then went on to medical school, and she is doing some amazing things. She founded the first ever full-time perinatal program dedicated to caring for women through pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. She really used her education at Pittsburgh State to go solve real-world problems. Because she went to medical school, but then she saw a problem that was really transformative amongst a number of different things, and that was the problem of mothers who were having challenges mentally accepting the fact that they were a mother. And it was having impact on themselves and their newborn child. And so Kaylee developed a program and opened the first ever full-time clinic in Oklahoma dedicated specifically to helping those mothers and their mental health needs. So again, thank y'all for being here. Thank you for what you do for Pittsburgh State University, for our students, for each other. Go out there, build a part for a meal. Do it with somebody next to you. Do it together. And let's make Pittsburgh State a transformational place where people do great things. Thank y'all.